Welcome to the Northern Outcast Outdoors podcast, The Outcast. Powered by A&F Custom Calls, Veteran Innovative Products.
Hear you there.
Is everybody strapped in here?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are on the second half of a doubleheader here today, and this is the second doubleheader in a row where both people had the same name. Last time we had Matt and Matt, and today we got John and John. So this is episode 6 with our buddy John Wappler from Pittsburgh, local boy, and
The Berg.
this dude stacks elk bodies, dude. Stacks bodies. How is it going, my dude?
It's going good. I don't know how true that is. I guess it's get lucky every once in a while.
I mean, you just sent me a bunch of pictures, and I was like, dude, you're giving me an inferiority complex here, dude. Knock it off.
It was a good year. 2020 was I guess not a great year for everything else, but for hunting, worked out all right for me.
I mean, 3 elk in 3 states. That's for someone, in the eastern United States. That's
For
pretty,
any human being on this planet,
yes, it's a pretty big deal.
that's a hell of a year. I don't care who you are or what you do. That's really good. Unless you're guiding or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Some private property or big secret areas. I don't know.
Well, the one you got completely solo, and was it the Wyoming one?
They were all solo. Well, no, my Wyoming one was the only one I got with a buddy.
Okay, I had it
Colorado
backwards.
and Arizona were solo. I'm usually solo, but yeah, they it was all just easy, like over the counter, easy to draw type of tags. Arizona is kind of a hard state to draw, but this is like a late archery season. Nobody wants to do, draw it with 0 points, ton of guys. But that was it was awesome. It was repeat of 2019 too. I drew all the exact same tags in 2019 and did it again in 2020, and I'm hoping to do the same thing in 2021.
That's awesome. You said whenever we were talking last week that because I was asking what states you got your stuff in, and then you said Idaho was kind of your backup plan. Are you planning on applying for that too again?
No, so Idaho, I think, went a little bit different this year. I'm not someone that applies in Idaho at all, but last year I bought a tag in one of the units just as a backup because I wasn't sure what I would draw, and I never used it. I was trying to do the same thing this year, but when they released the tags for sale in December of 2020 for 2021 season, all of the reasonable areas sold out. I think the only place that still has tags is like the Selway or something like that, and a couple other units that are notoriously either full of grizzly bears or devoid of elk. So I'm totally passing on Idaho this year.
Well, that's a big investment too, to take a tag in an area like that too, and then knowing your odds are already stacked against you.
And you're probably just gonna. To me, it's like the last resort thing. If I didn't draw, Wyoming, or I hadn't drawn Arizona, I would have just done Colorado over the counter in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's nice to have as that backup, but doing and that was my thought going into this year. It just didn't work out. I was late to the ball. I didn't really think about it until January, and by the time I looked into it, this year was a big fiasco. Idaho for the last couple years has been selling out sooner and sooner, and last year I got it in like February, and it sold out. I'm no expert, but sometime a month or two earlier than it normally does. And I know in 2016, guys residents could get 2 tags after the non-residents wouldn't take all of them. So it's becoming, I think all the people going into Colorado are leaving, going to Idaho, thinking there was greener pastures and fewer hunters.
Yeah. I mean, the statistics kind of show that between the 2 states, but I think another part of it too was, with the COVID scare, there was a lot of states shutting down applications and license sales early to non-residents, and I think what happened is everybody wanted to get that tag, and they just went out and bought it as early as possible, and they did sell out in record time last year. It was insane. Because our buddies were trying to go out there, and
we were going to Idaho originally too before work shut us down, and then we were planning on applying in February, I think, and they were already sold out.
Yeah,
it's crazy. The good news is there's Oregon has over the counter archery tags, Colorado does, Utah has a couple any bull units. They've got some spike over the counter tag. You can, still, if you're late to the game, still figure something out. Idaho's a good option if it's available, but right now, by the time we're talking here, it's a 2022 hunt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How did you start to figure all this stuff out? With all the draws and the applications, did you have assistance when you first got started with that, or did you just do a ton of research and figure it all out on your own?
I guess I should explain to you how I got started in it
Okay.
and how I got started hunting out west.
I'm surprised
And
Chucky
right
didn't
now-
yell at me for not. We were just talking about it. I just like dive right into it.
I
He was, like,
skipped
giving
the
me
introduction
side eye.
completely because you just got in deep. So I just started with the conversation. Figured if anybody wants to know who John is, they can just look you up. But I'm
That's
kidding.
right.
So yeah, back to square one. This is John. He hunts elk. He's from Pittsburgh.
That's in an, that's like my my dating profile line, right?
I love it.
But right now the answer is use Go Hunt. It's the easiest way to figure everything out, and you don't have to do it manually. But when I got into it, it was kind of an interesting thing. I'd grown up hunting whitetails like around home, and hunting bear and whatever else, turkey, grouse, pheasants, you name it, and always wanted to hunt out west. And I had 2016. It was strange, but I ended up having like some pain in my hip. Went to a doctor, got a couple opinions, and I got 2 doctors to tell me that I needed a hip replacement that I didn't want to do. And they said, if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it by the time you're 35. I was 25 at the time. So that to me was like all right, if I actually want to do this, I better do it now. I found that out like May, June timeframe. And then all right, I started looking at options. I didn't really bow hunt that much at the time. I just did some whitetail bow hunting. I didn't really think I had like a good setup for elk, so I figured I'm going to try rifle. And Colorado is the only state that had anything. And funny enough, all of my buddies that I hunt with at home did not want to go. So I called everybody that I hunt with around here. I called my dad. Nobody at the time thought it would be a great idea to go out west and hunt. When I did the research into Colorado, you could pretty much show up for the second and third rifle season in the vast majority of the state, buy a tag at Walmart, and go hunt elk for $600. And the only person who would go with me is my wife. So I took my wife on my first hunt. A lot of credit to her because I might have done it without her, but it was definitely better going with somebody else, and she was the only one who would do it. So, and it was actually nice to have a partner that wasn't hunting to help with some stuff. But we found at the time, we just found a decent area of national forest that looked like it had a sizable herd of elk and decent harvest rates. Now, I learned later that the reason that the harvest rates were so good is because the unit's like 80% private land where we started, and 20% public. So all of the harvest was coming off private.
Skewed statistics.
Right, exactly. But you learn over time, right? The first year that I got out there, I ended up, we hunted for like 7 days, and on the 7th morning, got a bull. It was the only elk we saw the whole trip. Somebody else bumped him. He came running past, and 200 yards, got a nice shot. He's still the biggest bull I've ever shot.
That's incredible.
But from there, started thinking, all right, there's got to be some better seasons for this. And 2017 ended up going to Colorado for archery, and my wife came with me there, and we had some success there. And then after 2017, I started to do like multiple states a year. So I did 18, I did Colorado twice, and then Wyoming, and then 19, Colorado, Wyoming, Arizona, and then the same thing last year. But that was the genesis. And now, I to double back to your question about the resources and figuring it out, just starting somewhere is probably the best way to go, doing it. And then once you get there, you kind of figure out some of the details, I think. It's not the most thought out way to go about it, but you don't have to put a ton of research into it. You can get, I think most of it's getting the experience. But now I use Onyx and Go Hunt, and that pretty much serves as the resources to figure out application strategies for all the states. I do Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Oregon, and Montana. And they release strategy articles, tell you exactly what to do from a overall perspective. And most of the strategy is collect points until hunt the over-the-counter areas and collect points in the rest of them. And every couple of years you'll get to do a pretty nice hunt.
I mean, go hunt's kind of become a pretty wild thing because they have everything on there. I mean, it'll show, like, tell you the tag process, like give you all the harvest reports for individual WMUs, all that stuff. And I mean, the subscription to that's like pretty reasonable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like $150 or something like that.
That's pretty normal across the board. If you're going to use any kind of assisting, software or whatnot, it's pretty typical. $150.
I mean, the amount of stuff on there is like, I don't have it personally because we were going to get it whenever we were going out there, and I was like, well, there's no point in getting it if we're not leaving Pennsylvania this year. But like when I was looking into the amount of knowledge that is on there is like kind of scary.
There are, even just if you were just wanting to go to one state, you can go on and filter, if you're Colorado over the counter, you can figure out. I will say this: if you don't want to spend the money, you can do they just aggregate data that is free online, and it's a matter of if you can find it. And you can, if just going to Colorado, you can go and find all of the information on there. But when you start to do a couple states, if you think about your time,
Yep.
I've saved more than $150 of my own time by trying to find some of this data. Like, some states are really easy. Some states like Arizona are hard to find the data. But yeah, for Colorado too, elk hunting's a big business for them, and their CPW publishes a ton of easy information on kind of like how to get started. They've got hunt planners that you can call in too, that actually isn't a bad resource.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So 2 things I took from this whole thing. One, I'm glad you had the hunting thing in your dating profile because you obviously found an A+ wife.
Yeah, God bless you.
To take care of your shit, to deal with your shit. And 2, what the hell do you do for a living to enjoy this kind of lifestyle? Because that's kind of a big deal. I mean, I think that a lot of people that want to do what you're doing, they kind of probably ask that question, I would imagine.
If I had an ordinary job, I guess I would not be able to do this to some end. I'm fortunate, so I've got a real estate business. We buy properties, fix them, and rent them. And we do usually single family homes or portfolios of homes. And for my side of the business, we also have a construction company that supplements that business. But for my side of it, I can run it all from anywhere, right? It's all a lot of technology involved. So as long as I have service, I can do exactly what I need to do. And to be honest with you, it's not all glory on the hunting side. Like, a lot of the hunts, I'll go to Colorado and I'll hunt the morning, and I'll be back to my, I usually stay in my camper. I'll be back to my camper by 1, 2 o'clock, and then I work till 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Get up and just do it again. But it's allowed me, this fall, I was pretty much either in Wyoming, Colorado, or Arizona from end of August through end of November. I came home a couple of times, got to hunt deer at home, and had to take care of some meetings and stuff. But outside of that, my job, it would be hard to do it otherwise. You certainly could, and I'd probably just do it differently, hunt all day, every day while you're there. But I kind of stretch the trips out and allow myself to just work evenings. And the other thing is the time zone difference too. It actually, sometimes, depending if you want to work morning or evening, it can benefit you from East Coast to Mountain Time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, to all the regular jack-offs like us that are listening to this right now, you just made everybody insanely jealous. But
I mean, but that's just good business practice.
Yeah,
and
no, man,
I mean,
that's awesome.
one, you're double dipping on the real estate part, and then when you go to fix a house, it's, oh, hey, I got a construction company that's going to go ahead and do the work too. So let me make money on that, right? So, I mean, you got good business ideals, and then on top of that, you're grinding. I mean, there's nobody that's going to question the fact that what you do and why you get to do it is because of your effort and your hard work. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And like you're saying, you might extend a trip out 3 months, But just even hunting half a day, you're constantly keeping track of what these herds are doing. So I feel like you're at a better advantage than someone that might only have 10 days and gets a hunt all day.
Yeah.
You know?
And you don't get fatigue is a real thing from, it's totally different when you're on day 7 and you haven't seen an elk for 7 days.
Yeah.
And, getting up morning 8 to go back out is a challenge. And I think it's a benefit the way I get to do it, because that, you get every evening off of hunting. So when I'm working, it is not strenuous activity, right? It's phone calls and spreadsheets. So I don't have to, I get to rest every evening and be totally recharged every morning. And I would say not every time I go out is that way. Sometimes it is hunt all day the whole time. But for the most part, I got to keep the lights on and got to keep working. And I will say too, like, extremely fortunate to be able to run that business and have it succeed. And I couldn't do it any better in terms of drawing up a lifestyle to be able to hunt as much as I want to, and still keep a job, right?
Oh yeah. And that's kind of, anybody that's like been following Cameron Haynes or any of those dudes right now, like, it's the same deal. It's like, if you really want to do it that bad, you can make it happen. And I think that's like something that a lot of people don't understand, that like have this like, tongue-in-cheek like envy and like, well, it must be nice and all that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hey man, you want to go start a construction company and hunt for a month, then go do it. Shut
Adjust your
damn mouth.
lifestyle to make it happen. Absolutely, 100%. A lot of people that are jealous is because they don't want to put the effort in to do what you're doing to make it work.
Don't get me wrong, I'm jealous, but
it's a good jealousy.
Yeah,
though.
it's like,
you don't have a lot of glorious rest of the year though, right? February, well, not December through, July is 90 hour weeks, and this is the way it goes. But that's the sacrifice you make. And, we're just, again, pretty fortunate to have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And you can still do it without giving up your full-time lifetime like goals or, business ideals. Like, you can still do it. You don't have to give up everything that you have to make this work. There's different things you can do to adjust your lifestyle to make it work for those 3 months that are most critical for you. If you really want to do the out west and hunt multiple states, it's not easily done, but you can do it.
Having a wife that's on board, I feel like, is more than 50% of that equation too, though, to be totally honest with you, speaking from experience.
70 to 80%.
It's imperative. And the other thing though too is you really only need to commit like 8 days, right? If you want to do it once a year, and that's the first 2 years. I only went out, first year once, second year twice, but I just became obsessed with it and decided that I wanted to do it more because it was enjoyable. You don't have to go out that many times. You can go have one full week of hunting that's a great week, and it isn't like a giant time commitment. A lot of people can get that off of work, but yeah, as far as the other side of it, with your spouse and kids and everything like that, you definitely need cooperation there, because otherwise it couldn't happen. It would be tenuous.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Does your wife hunt?
No, outside of the times with me, no. There's, her family always gets just some good laughs out of the fact of how she was, and then when we went on that hunt last year, there's a picture of her helping me break the elk down that always makes them laugh, that just wouldn't have seen her there a couple years prior to that. But I give her credit because she was not afraid to do any of it, despite the fact that she doesn't hunt at all. She was more than happy to help gut it, and we tried to do the gutless method first time on an elk, ended up being gutted.
I tried to do that. I tried to do it on a whitetail this year. It was a disaster.
Yeah, that was
I just
like a
wanted
practice.
to see if I could. Yeah,
this was before we were barred from heading west from work, but we got a little weird there.
So is it going to happen this year?
We're planning an Oklahoma turkey hunt. That seems like that's going to happen. We were talking about doing spring bear, but I don't know. I'm not sure what the lay of the land is right now. But Oklahoma is kind of in our immediate future for turkey. But that's a big thing for us is turkey. So
Yeah.
Well, it's a good way to get out of the house in the spring for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that's probably that's my favorite thing to hunt, like for sure.
Yeah, and the trips are easy. I mean, they're so much more affordable. You can do 4 or 5 turkey hunts to one elk trip, cost wise. And if you have the time, the nice thing about turkey is, I mean, you can locate them pretty quick and get the job done in maybe just a long weekend, and you don't necessarily always need, maybe 8 to 10 days out there. So, and again, turkeys, most states, you can only hunt them half a day, so, you're not grinding yourself out. And our trip is only 4 days out in Oklahoma, but we've never chased Rios before, and I've never been to that part of the country, and it's going to be pretty exciting, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're elk with wings, right?
Exactly.
That's what everybody said about it. Everybody said about it. It's kind of the same principles, at least.
Typically the other way around, because we have turkey. They're like, yeah, elk are just really big turkeys with horns.
It's true, though, right? You get the same excitement of calling them in, and, And the good side about the turkeys is there's probably a lot less. Well, I don't know. Every time I've seen to hunt turkey locally, it's like somebody's getting shot, or you see like 10 guys, or you call in 10 guys.
Yeah.
But I imagine Oklahoma's probably a little better than that.
Yeah. You actually, whenever you and I initially kind of made contact on Instagram, I guess this was probably a year or two ago. I was busting your balls about a pheasant tag or something like that, and I think you said your in-laws are up by me. Is that it, or was it your family? Because we were talking about it. Because I mean,
no, that's right. My in-laws live
are
in
up here.
Wilmington.
Yeah, so you kind of have this how Wild West Western Pennsylvania can be for hunting in general, let alone when you're actually calling stuff and there's idiot dudes tromping through the woods coming to you.
Yeah, that's exactly that's my turkey hunting experience in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. Why are you coming to a hen call?
Dude, the one time, that one day me and you went out, we thought it was a guy calling back to us. Of course, the one time we're being like idiots, we start cutting back, and it's a turkey that came in, and we're like, you got to be kidding me. But it happens so often, you just think that's what it is. You know what I mean?
It happened to me twice this year where I was calling, and I heard the other person, and I'm like, that's a person, 100%.
Yeah.
I said, just sit here, sit tight, we'll keep calling. Sure enough, here comes a guy walking right over the hill. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not gobbling.
Yeah.
Why are you coming towards me? If I'm a hen, why are you not sitting still and just hanging out, right? The hen's hanging up. Who cares? There's no gobble. Did you hear a gobble?
Yeah. I think Jeff had the best, though, that dude that came through the woods with the Davy Crockett hat on, through, the Kool-Aid man coming through the wall, that's the craziest thing ever.
I had one guy up the mountains that we were just there's no vehicle, right? There's no vehicle and anywhere in sight. And we jump out and do what we typically do. You come up to a big piece of timber, you jump out, throw out a few calls, see if one answers, jump back in the truck, head down the road. I mean, it's middle of the day, whatever. And this dude comes running out of this brush pile, throwing his arms up at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, buddy, I just let you know there's no birds here. You can leave now. We're out of here. See ya.
Yeah.
Especially now with the COVID thing, man. That every parking lot's full. Turkey season. It was wild.
So that was the peak. Everybody getting sent home from work last spring. I don't know about where you hunted down there, but I know up in the Allegheny Forest where we hunt, it was insane.
There's all kinds of new guys out there just doing crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, unsafe. It's unsafe for sure, especially in the spring like that.
Yeah, it definitely gets western out there. I'll share with you my elk hunting goal that I'm now going to turn into a turkey hunting goal. I want to call in a hunter with a camera crew because everybody wants to have their own hunting channel now. And you see a lot of guys running around. You can call them in with an elk call, and they'll come running at you with their whole camera crew in tow, only to get to you and realize you're just some Joe Schmo with a bugle. I want to do the same thing with turkeys.
Well, dude, let me know. I'll bring the camera, and we'll have our own film crew waiting. It'll be like To Catch a Predator. Have a seat, sir.
Just take a seat.
Turkey edition.
Why did you come to this hen call?
Would you care to elaborate on your stupidity?
Let's break this hunt down for you, huh?
That's incredible, actually.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on that and turn it into an elk thing, an elk question. So when you're out there, I mean, how do you separate the real bugles from the other people with bugle calls?
Most of the time, it's obvious.
Okay.
Everybody's got there's the Primos bugle that's a 3-note bugle that sounds like the most canned elk call you've ever heard. And that's usual. 100% of the time that call is a guy. Other than that, they make a lot of different noises. They don't always. Sometimes the worst bugle you'll hear, you might think, "Wow, that's somebody that's just learning to elk call," and it's a bull.
That's my next question.
Yeah, I've heard that about turkeys too. It's the same
Yep.
thing. Some of the ugliest sounding hens are like the biggest, nastiest ones.
That and bugling is like the most popular way to call. A lot of these areas that I hunt are so heavily pressured that they don't bugle a lot. And if you'll hear bugling activity rarely, but honestly, I hear a lot of the most success I've had bugling wise is early morning where it's pre-light or middle of the day type of stuff. It just depends on the area and whatnot and the activity. But I know Colorado's so heavily hunted, they're usually pretty quiet. I think I heard the only bugle I heard in Colorado this year was the bull that I killed. There were 3 of them, and they were going nuts. But they eventually relate the fact that their bugling brings on pressure. And this year was like particularly muted compared to other years because there were some really bad fires. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it was smoky everywhere, even if you weren't near a fire. We weren't within 50 miles of a fire, but it smelled like you were in one. And I think that played with their senses a little bit and probably made the rut more muted than it had been in previous years. So as far as bugling activity, low. And as far as differentiating them, I kind of operate under the sense that, like, if it's people always do like in a pattern, if they bugle every 30 seconds, you probably know it's a human. And when you get close enough too, you can definitely tell whether it's real or not, just because of the,
Can you hear like the
there's
rasp?
certain things you can't fake. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can just hear, like, you don't have a big enough lung set to do the full piece that an elk could do, I suppose. But you can get really close, and when you're that close to them, you know. And there's the other thing about elk too is those things are so loud, right? They can be quiet when they want to, but 9 times out of 10 they're breaking branches and they're trying to fit giant antlers through small pines or aspens, and you can just hear that. I mean, half the calling activity realistically in a good setup is smacking trees around, breaking branches, etc., and sounding like them beyond just a bugle anyway.
Yeah, I mean, plus they're usually with a full harem of cows, and that many big bodies, and especially some of the timbered areas. I mean, they're going to be making noise. They're going to be making a racket.
And you can hear them from hundreds of yards away from that side of it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you know Clint Casper, or if you're familiar with who Clint Casper is, but he had a similar experience, I think, this year out in, it was either Idaho. I believe he was in Idaho in a very high-pressured unit. It was either Idaho or Utah. It had to be Idaho, right? Either way.
I don't know. You don't want to talk about him like he's your best friend.
I know. He's my boy, but he doesn't know that yet, but he will. But he was in an area, and that was similar tactics I'm hearing from you, is where, he was basically not calling at all because everybody out there, it's super high pressured. Everybody out there is calling. And what he would do is he'd get up super early in the midst of the night, listen for bugles, and then he would move in and try to basically hunt them like turkeys, where you just get in front of them and kind of keep quiet sometimes. Just get in front of them and keep at the herd. And he ended up shooting a really nice bull that way, but he never called one time, he said.
A lot of the people have been saying in Colorado, the wolf situation over like the last 2 or 3 years, they're like refusing to address it, and it's been getting like kind of crazy because there's a couple areas that I believe wolves are protected now, and they said that the overpopulation of the wolves is keeping them from bugling too. Because I mean, it's a dinner bell for the wolves when they hear that,
Yeah.
In Idaho, that's part of the problem. Colorado doesn't have wolves yet, but they do. They've got like
or it's
some
the bears
transient
maybe.
wolf.
I can't remember what they were saying now. It's been
Idaho has
too
that
much
problem.
info.
Yeah, Idaho has that big time where, and I think it was worse 10 years ago than it is now. Colorado's getting, the voters of Colorado agreed to put wolves in the state by like 2023, so they're going to have the same situation. But I totally agree with the spot. It's more slip in and kill them silently than calling them. And especially early season, you've got a lot more possibility for success like that. In the middle of the day, calling is the way to go because it's It's very, unless you bed them, right? You can glass them into their bed and you know exactly where they are and you've got the wind right and can slip in. It's much easier. Like the middle of the day, it's easy enough to get a bull that's in their bed. If you can get within 200 yards of them, call them into you. And it's something to do from that like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. window where otherwise you're pretty much sitting there doing nothing, right? It's slow.
Yeah, I know for him what was working was he was actually playing that bull off of other hunters because he was noticing as other hunters would call out, he was witnessing that big herd bull just herd him up and take him over the hill in the opposite direction. He was kind of playing it off that. He would listen to other people calling, and then he would watch them, and he got them kind of patterned to where they kept coming up into one piece of dark timber, and he got slipped in there. Sure enough, guy called out, they come in, and he ended up shooting one. Pretty cool tactics.
Yeah.
It's almost like whitetail hunting if you think about it. I mean, not really the spot and stalk part, but whitetail hunting, most of the time you're sitting up in a tree stand, patterning them, and waiting silently, hoping that they don't know you're in their area at all.
The one thing that was never really occurred to me until I was in the situation for the first time was how difficult it is to keep when a bull has 5 or 6 cows, that's a small harem, right? If they've got 10 or 15, it's totally different. That's so many sets of eyeballs that are looking, and generally those cows are going to be the first ones through. Mm-hmm. So you have to go undetected through that many sets of cows before you can even slip into the bull. So sometimes, I know a lot of guys like the early season before they've gathered cows. The bulls will be together all summer, and then once at some point in like late August, they generally break up from their bachelor groups and they go on their own, and that's like a really good time to hunt them before because they're really easily callable if they don't have cows yet, and 2, you don't have to get through 15 cows to get to the bull that you want. But that's it was a hard piece to figure out on the spot. A lot of blown opportunities like that, that's for sure.
Essentially like hunting the pre-rut here. Same thing there, pre-rut, but like all the bucks are just kind of cruising early in October looking, to gather does. So basically the same principle.
Yeah, very much the same. There's a lot of similarities between deer and elk. I mean, there's a lot of differences too, but more similarities than differences, I would say.
Yeah, it's really cool though, to like kind of be able to put it in. I mean, that's what we said we wanted to talk about, was kind of demystifying, going west and like how overwhelming it could be for someone from, Western PA that grew up only hunting whitetail to be able to put it into terms like that like, idiots like us understand. It's like, oh, yeah, I've been doing that for 10 years. That makes sense. And then, you know what I mean? Instead of going out there like, oh my God, I got to shoot this giant, free range wild cow in the Rocky Mountains. You know what I mean? Like it's overwhelming until and it's cool to be able to, put that into terms that are like a little more relatable, I guess, to, us folk.
Well, one thing too, like that may be worth touching on for, guys that are listening, is the cost side of it. And I think everybody thinks it's going to be, part of the reason I didn't want to go originally too, was because I figured it would be like, I got to shell out $5,000 or $10,000 to go on a elk hunt.
Yeah.
And, the fact of the matter is, it's not that expensive, right? Especially if you go with 1 or 2 buddies. If you go with 2 or 3 buddies and you drive out from Pennsylvania, the gas is going to be $200 a person, probably tops, right? You each have to buy your tag, $660 in Colorado, and you have to feed yourself whether you're in Pennsylvania or in Colorado, and you're not feeding yourself high quality food. You don't have to eat like top of the line food the whole way, right? You can get everything done on a budget, and that's what that's what I would say. And you can use the same gear you use at home that you can use out west. Certainly high, KUIU gear or First Light gear or whatever. Yeah, it has its advantages, but you don't need it, right? It isn't a requirement to go there. And the same thing with the rifles. You don't need a special elk hunting rifle. A 30-06, probably like the most common caliber, it will kill an elk, right? And a bow, again, I had a buddy this year, my buddy Greg, who we went to Wyoming with. He used his like Dad's bow from 1990, and he didn't even shoot it until like August. I mean, it has like a 50-pound draw and an aluminum arrow, and he killed a 300-inch bull with it. It
That's
was incredible. But you don't need to have a new Matthews to go elk hunt. You can definitely do it all for less than you think, and then the way I've done it is kind of add a little bit of gear over time, right? I didn't start with everything, just as time goes along, every year add 1 or 2 pieces of gear that you think would be valuable to you, and in 5 years you'll have everything you need.
Yeah.
What's that priority list look like? What would you say is like the top 1 or 2 investments your first year out? Is it boots or pack? What would you say?
I still run crappy boots, to be honest with you. I got a set of Crispies this year for the first time, but I'd run like $100 Under Armour boots. They're nothing special, and I've never had any problems with it. I know a lot of guys are really big on that. I think I'm probably more like lucky with the foot side of things, like don't get blisters, don't have arch problems, etc. But the most bang for your buck in terms of like valuable pieces of equipment, I think a lot of guys will run this in their whitetail setup anyway, is a bino harness, rangefinder, and binoculars. That allows you to get a long way. I don't use a tripod. Everything I'm doing is like dark timber type of hunting. You can't see more than a couple hundred yards anyway, but that, it's obviously a necessity whether you're hunting with a bow or a rifle to have your range and to be able to have some level of zoom with an optics. The one thing that you may not have if you're just coming from hunting whitetails to going out west would be the appropriate backpack. You need something that is a frame setup that you can haul the meat out with, if you're successful. That not, you can't use a JanSport to get your elk out of the woods.
I take that challenge.
You might be able to, but it might take you a long time.
I will say about the pack, me and Jeff, I mean, when we were in our planning stages, that was the first thing we bought. We went and bought Kafaru bags, and around here, I use that thing for everything. I don't know how I survived out here without that bag to this point, to be honest with you. I use that thing for freaking everything. Hauling tree stands, any even just like going for a walk in the woods. I love that thing.
Yeah, but you guys aren't the typical Northwest PA hunters either. I mean, you're doing a lot of hiking back in long distances into big woods, going up some pretty severe terrain. I mean, you guys do it a little different than your typical, I have 100 acres of private land and I hunt a couple public pieces person.
We like to LARP,
Yeah.
like we're out west.
Lord.
But I mean, the bag was a game changer. Like that's something that I would, not being out there obviously, but like hauling like a tree stand on my back instead of having the stupid straps that they give you. Having it in like a bag like that, like on a good frame, is like a game changer, like a complete game changer.
Yeah, I packed 3 deer out this year.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Do
great.
you guys run with a satellite phone at all?
No, that is something we do not have. Which we've
It's
been
worth
actually
it.
talking about. We've been just getting into the radio game a little bit.
Yeah. So what would you, like, entry-level satellite phone, what would you say?
They, the same company that I've always used is like I know they work because I've had to press the SOS. I didn't have to. I accidentally pressed the SOS button and they came.
Man, isn't that like a $10,000 button, they say, on some of them out there?
It didn't cost me a thing.
Okay, good.
Outside of like some scared family, because they call like your emergency contacts first that think you're dead, and then once they realize you're not, life is much better. But
Yeah.
I use the InReach Explorer, and they make a mini, which
That's
you
the
can
Garmin
get.
one, right?
Yeah. That's the one I
okay.
hear about on any podcast. A lot of people is the InReach and the InReach Mini.
It is a no-brainer, right? You can buy that thing for like $300, and you can get a freedom plan the month you go out to hunt with it. Pay $50, you get unlimited messaging, and then shut it off when you're done. It's one of the ones that when people don't have them, I know a lot of guys that don't have them. Why would you not? If you don't have service in 90% of the areas that you hunt, if you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to generally have service. Outside of that, you don't. if you are by yourself and you get injured, you need a way to get extracted. So it's one of the ones where I guess you don't have to have it, but you would sure feel stupid if you died and you didn't spend the $300.
No, that is something that I've been looking at
You probably
for quite
wouldn't
a
feel
while.
anything, but
Yeah.
everybody else would think you're stupid.
Well, I know even just where I hunt, like up in the Allegheny Forest, like I don't have reception at 80%, even on the top of mountains, like in some of the spots. So it's like that's actually been something that's been in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Like,
But also a little cheater pro tip here: if you are a PA resident and you're hunting PA and you do have service, the Go Hunt PA app actually has that same emergency button feature where you can put your emergency contacts in and it will contact all of them, plus like an SOS button basically. You can use that app. I have it set up on my phone. I mean, obviously you have to have cell phone service, but if you're hunting, Northwest PA right here where you typically have service, you can use that Go Hunt PA app and it does the same thing. It has a little SOS feature.
yeah,
Pretty neat.
That's cool. I didn't even know about that.
neither did I.
That's nice.
Yep.
Have you ever had a incident where you thought, it was kind of sketchy? Like I know you said your hip was kind of giving you problems there. Did you ever get back where you felt like, run into a situation you thought you might have to use it?
No, never put myself in a spot where I thought I should or may need it, but it's comforting knowing that you can push the limits, that you have that if you want to.
Right.
Because where it would come into question is maybe, you're at a spot where you should turn around or you've got to go over some steep cliff and you're not totally positive that, you're going to do it and keep all your limbs. And if you do, you can, hit the button and get in and out. I've heard of a couple of guys that get, take horses in and get kicked in the ribs by a horse,
Right.
and have to push the button, and it's, huge for him. But I've never had. To me, it's mostly communication.
Yeah.
Like I'll actually use mine with the unlimited messaging feature. It comes up as an app on your phone, and you can text just like you're texting from your phone. The communication's a hair slow, right? It takes like 10 minutes for a message to go through, but you can, keep everybody kind of informed where you are, and that's about it. But fortunately, the only time I pressed the button, I was totally safe, and by the time I got to actual cell service and they called me, realized that that I had left the SOS button open and left my phone in my backpack, and it worked. So
Yeah.
I think they do a good job.
It probably helps too for you, especially that you got your wife with you, so she's a reasonable head. Like you probably shouldn't go over that little mountain there. Might break some bones. I know if my wife was out hunting with me, I'd be climbing a lot less trees and doing a lot less sketchy stuff.
I mean, I watched you literally just climb a tree to get an arrow out of the tree. Like, not just climb the tree like he's a freaking Ming Mong, like a little monkey climb up that damn thing.
Yeah, the wife won't let me get away with those things.
No, the Heathers don't
Broadheads are
tolerate
expensive,
that.
man.
This is why women live longer, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's also shooting broadheads at squirrels, so, I mean, do with that information what you will, but it's a good video if you're shameless plug. Right?
If I shot a $30 broadhead into a tree, I'd be going to get it too.
That's exactly
yeah.
what I said.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you need some broadheads, you should hit up our giveaway we had going on there.
Oh,
Another
yeah.
shameless plug.
Yes. Giveaway is happening now. So what broadhead are? Well, we don't have to get into broadheads because that's a touchy subject. But we are giving away some veteran broadheads. It's a little not so well known company, but they're making a huge push right now. They've been out for a long time and they make some really quality broadheads. So get on over and check out that giveaway.
Channel
Turkey
sponsor.
broadheads too, right?
Yeah, turkey
Oh yeah,
broadheads.
turkey heads. He is the original gobbler guillotine guy. He is the OG creator of that broadhead. So the guy's done some pretty amazing stuff.
So, as far as your hunts in your 3 states this year, what was like the one that was like probably the most memorable of the 3?
I don't know. I don't know the good answer to that. The Arizona one was memorable because I brought my family with me on that, and I got to take my son up to the elk because it was like you could coincidentally drive to it where the thing ended up dying. So that was cool, but it was definitely a smaller bull, harder hunt. I don't know. they all were a little bit special to me and enjoyable. I liked Colorado was probably, reflecting on it, the best one, because it was day 5 that I shot my bull, which was the last day of the hunt, and I did not see an elk for 5 days and nights. I hunted all day, every day during that, so it was a relief to finally get one, more than anything.
Oh, when you're hunting anything, no matter what, I mean, you go 3 days without seeing anything at all. I mean, that's like, that'll test your nuts for sure.
Oh yeah. Yep. That
Way to put that one.
it's not enjoyable in the moment.
No. Oh, dude, when you're getting your ass kicked for, days on end, especially out there, because, I mean, dude, it's not like you're walking to, you're driving 20 minutes down the road to state game lands and walking 100 yards in the woods. It's like, oh, no, I got to get up at 4 and hike 3 miles up a mountain, like a literal mountain, to not see anything. I mean, that's a bigger kick in the balls for sure. Not to keep saying balls now, but you know what I mean.
But at the end of the day, it's when you think back on it now, sitting here in February, I'd rather be out there seeing nothing than sitting at my desk all day. So
oh, you're right.
I guess I can't complain.
You're absolutely right.
Just got to embrace the grind. It feels good being out there. Just got to keep reminding yourself where you're at and what you're doing.
Well, it makes it that much better whenever you go up there and you get to put your hands on fur too, though.
Well, you know what? That's a good topic, though. I mean, the mindset is mental game is probably one of the biggest when you're out there and doing that long of a trip, especially. Yeah. I mean, why don't you go over a couple, maybe your early downfalls, or what you experienced with your mindset early on when you first started going out west, and kind of where you're at now, and what worked and what you kind of regret doing?
I would say I don't think my mindset has changed in the 5 years, and it was, I'm fairly goal oriented, so the idea, I don't know that this is the approach for everybody, but it's the approach that I take. I want to, if I'm going on a hunt, it isn't to spend time with friends or family, right? I can spend time with friends and family from December through August. My objective when I'm hunting is to kill something.
Yeah.
And,
oh, God.
I don't know, the biggest thing, it is hard when you're there and you screw it up, because it takes so much time and energy to get an opportunity, and you might get an opportunity. So it's disheartening if you miss, or the other thing that I would say too is, like, wounding something, it, can kind of give you the same, like, feeling.
For me,
right?
that's worse, I think. I mean, for me personally, like, mentally, that is a worse thing. Like, when you wound something, you're like, oh, fuck, not did I just screw up, I might have, never gonna see this animal, and it's suffering, and
it's got an arrow sticking out of it. And that's, if I'm I don't know where you guys sit on that fence. Some people are, if you wound it, you punch your tag, or you know what, if you wound it, that's part of the game, keep hunting.
I mean, it is, that happens, that's something that people will look down on for. It's like, dude, if you look down on me and you tell me that you've never done that before, you're a lying sack of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
and if you made all the efforts, if you, it would be different if you just showed up on opening day, never shot your bow, opened it out of the opened your crossbow out of the package, and you went out there and you shot something in the ass. Yeah, that's you hold a high degree of responsibility for that. If you made every effort and you shot your bow every couple of days, and you put 1,000 arrows through, and you tune your broadheads, and you're feeling really good, and you screw up, it's definitely no reason. Right. It happens, and you got to stick with it. But the mental side of it, to me, is it is only mental. You just have to maintain the right mindset that you want to, you're there to have success, and you give it everything you've got. And if you do go home empty-handed, then you tried your best. This year in Wyoming, the first trip that I left, I went out and hunted 7 days and didn't get a bull, and it is a shitty feeling getting back in your truck to drive 24 hours home, and you didn't accomplish the goal.
Yeah.
I went back out and did it again. I ended up getting a Wyoming bull the second trip out, but that wasn't the plan originally. Originally, I didn't have a second trip in mind.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get it, and at least driving home, I could feel like, keep my head up that I tried. If you quit like 3 days into it, going on your drive home that you're going to think, oh, you might not even get home before you want to be back out there,
Yeah.
no matter how miserable it is at the time. So it's just keeping the right mindset,
Yeah.
and I think that applies to obviously more than just hunting. It's just sticking with it, and that's pretty much as simple as it is.
I mean, I know for me, even on a PA buck tag, say I miss and I did this year with a gun, even worse, but I missed a buck. So say any normal person listening to this that hunts white-tailed deer in our area, you may miss or wound an animal that you don't recover at some point if you're hunting with a bow, because it happens. I mean, you're hunting with archery equipment. There's a much greater percentage chance that happens at some point. I know my level of disgust and anger after that happens to me on a whitetail that I just spent, $60 for a tag.
Yeah.
If I was out west on a, not once in a lifetime, but on a big trip like that, spending decent amount of money, and I shot and missed an elk, I don't know if I'd ever get over it.
Yeah.
I'd beat myself
hurts.
up for the next 2 years probably.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I hunt a lot by myself. Like not to keep going back to turkey, but like the first week I go to the camp, I'm completely by myself, and I'm hiking back in there, and you're waking up yourself at 4 a.m, and like by day 3, like the mental commitment is like you're paying a higher toll mentally to get up. And then I know a couple years ago I missed this one on Thursday after I just got my teeth kicked in completely by myself, and like that mental hurdle is like, it can be that'll break you. Like I don't care how dedicated you are, like that can break you, especially when you're completely by yourself. Like that mental, it's completely different. Like then if you have somebody that's like, oh dude, that sucks, come on, let's go back over to the other hill or something. It's like, no dude, I want to go like curl up in a ball down in the river and drown right now. You know what I mean? Like
So
Yeah.
I mean, John, you've done it both. I mean, you've been out west with other people in your company, and you've been out west by yourself. Maybe get into how you overcome that kind of different approach when you're out there by yourself, and that different mindset compared to being with people that can lift you up and lift your spirits up.
It is 100% a mindset, and all you have to do is adjust your view of it, in my opinion. And it's really hard to do that in the moment, right? You miss that shot on a bull, you clip a branch, and that was your one shot in 5 days. You feel like you're in the dumps, and you're by yourself. The advantage to having people with you is that they can pick you up out of that slump without any inspiration from yourself. The harder part is doing it when you're just by yourself, because you have to kind of take a step back for a second and think about it, right?
Yeah.
All right, you missed, but how much did you learn to get to the spot where you put yourself there? Because it is not easy to get in a position where you have a shot opportunity, right? You can't just walk out into the woods and be there. It took you how long to get there, and you learned their patterns, or you learned this or that about the particular situation and terrain that you're in, and put yourself in the right spot. You're that much more likely to do it again. And I think you've probably heard the saying that like the success rate might be 10% on elk. Well, 90% of the people are the same, or in that 10%, it's the same 90% of people every year that are killing those 10%. So you learn so much, and you have to take that experience for what it's worth, realize that it made you a little bit better, and you're better than you were right before then. And as long as you know in the back of your mind that you put the preparation in, just pick yourself up and do it again and try it again. And eventually you're going to get success. And I think that's what pretty much what it boils down to for me. Because again, there have been those, you hunt all day and then you got to wake up the next morning at 3:00 and do a 3 or 4 mile hike. In the moment, it is not appealing. I've had a lot of success thinking about now, like what I would feel like in February if I didn't get up or I slept in, and just skip to the morning hunt, because this time of year means probably more to me for like thinking about it that way, right? I just hate not hunting season so much, and I want it to be hunting season 12 months out of the year, that willing to endure some pain for it, I think is. So I guess at the end of the day, adjusting your own mindset, and it takes a certain level of toughness, I guess, to do it. I mean, certainly don't need to be, ridiculously mental tough, but I think anybody can do it with the right mindset.
If you could give, like, just, I guess we kind of like skirted around it, like, sort of talking about this, but like 3 things, like someone from around here that's like, been a whitetail hunter that's been thinking about going out west, like 3 things you could say, like right off the top of your head, like they're for planning to go out there, like what would you tell them, like just shooting from the hip, like if they wanted to go out west, what would you tell them?
Figure it out, right? I would say from first your financial perspective, set aside $1,500, and it seems like a lot of money, but it isn't. You can make it, right? If you need to get a second job, delivering pizza or driving for, I guess Uber doesn't exist right now, but if you need to drive for DoorDash or for a delivery service, Instacart, do it and take the money and have the responsibility to set it aside and actually save it. Don't spend it on beer or whatever the hell.
Jeff,
put your
son of
separate
a
checking
bitch.
account.
Damn it. This is horrible advice.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a number one.
Yeah.
And then second piece to that, once you have your money, put in the repetitions with what you need to do at home, right? You can do it. Being in physical shape is something that people probably talk too much about, but it depends how much you're going to like or not like your hunt. And it's very hard to go from 800 feet of elevation to 10,000 feet of elevation and suffer no consequences. There's no way you can do it. There's no way to acclimate immediately. It takes a period of time, no matter how much water you drink and how much Advil you take. But you can be in shape before you go out there, and you can know your equipment, right? You can know whether you have a 1990 bow or a brand new Matthews. You can know how to shoot it and what your capabilities are, and you can have practiced as much as you can. That's probably point 2. And point 3 is doing the research. I think the best thing in terms of general research would be a 2-prong approach. Is 1, boil down to a unit. Don't spend so much time that you get analysis paralysis and you look at everything and you don't know what to make of it. Either find a buddy that's been out there and can give you a point of reference. And don't, obviously, with respect to taking somebody's spot, that's a pretty sensitive topic. But if they say, hey, go to GMU 81, all right, you got a place to start. But find the biggest thing, too, if you've never set foot in an area, have plans A through E on spots that you can check out that are not easily accessible, because you're going to run into whatever over-the-counter tag you have. There's going to be guys there, and you just can't get discouraged by seeing guys because they're everywhere. And you usually see them by a road because they're too lazy to get off of it, or they're on their side-by-side or whatever. So have a handful of spots that you can check out. You go to one, you don't see the appropriate amount of sign or animals or anything. All right, next time, move to spot B. You be mobile with it, but have the plan before you go out there, because you don't want to be spending hunt time developing a plan. If you run through your whole plan before you get and you're still in your hunt, then it's a whole other story to think of something else. But you don't want to be day 2 in your hunt and you've exhausted your only option and now you don't know where to go, because that's when you go home. If you have a plan and you can kind of stick to your plan, it's a lot easier to stay out there and keep yourself accountable.
Makes sense. Now, going back to point 2, I mean, part of the preparation, if someone's doing, say, an early season or an opener in archery season, would you suggest that they get out there maybe a couple days early on their trip just to try to get a little more acclimated to the height, and basically do that before you're climbing the mountain? Get out there, just kind of live in that atmosphere for a little bit.
If you've got the time, absolutely. But if you're time sensitive, if you've got 7 days and you can have 3 of them preseason and 4 of them in the season, then no. Make sure you have a bow in your hand the whole time for your 7-day window. But the reality and what I do, you will do yourself more harm by pushing it to the limit the opening day you get there. 1, if you drive it straight through, your body just sat for 24 hours in a car. in the same position. I mean, you got up to pee a couple of times and get gas. It just isn't enough that, you know, you can jump right into putting a 40-pound pack on your back and hiking into the woods. So I would say if you have unlimited time, preseason scouting is invaluable. My personal preference, I go out in the summer every year and spend time out there, and you know, it's a good family little vacation, but you can also, you know, get into all your spots, see what you like. If you don't have the time to do that, just the first day you get there, take it generally easy. The second day you can start to work into it and you'll be fine. If you drink enough water and, you know, don't push it. I think the bigger things for archery too, shot angles that you don't think about, right? It's not, we have rolling hills here, but it's not what you're not going to have like a 100-foot drop shot, you know, shot angles are something to practice, and practicing at multiple distances. I think it's worth being able to shoot from 20 to 60, and being prepared to do so. Or even if you're from 20 to 40, know every shot, you know, have a little bit of practice range finding without a rangefinder, because I can tell you of all the archery bulls that I've actually shot, I've ranged 2 of them, right? I probably killed 7 archery bulls, and a lot of times you just don't have the chance, right? It's such a flash thing. You have to know, what does 40 yards look like? What does 30 yards look like? And be able to just react to that. That's something you can practice here, and you can know what 50 yards looks like here, and you can get, you know, an elk looks the same in your sight housing at 50 yards at home as it does in Colorado. The one challenge is getting a 3D elk target. I think it's probably like $2,500, but
Yeah.
That's it, boys. You heard it. We're gonna go get an elk target, and we're gonna hoist that thing up in the air about 40 yards,
Shoot
and
like
we're
a
just
big
gonna
old
shoot at
pinata.
it. Yeah, like a big pinata, elk pinata. And we're gonna fling arrows into it with nothing but the sky behind it, and that's what we're gonna do to practice. But no, I mean, that makes sense. And I guess piggybacking on what you're saying too is your distances are gonna look different, you know, at different elevations, because if you're a severe downward, you know, that elk's going to look different than it is on flat ground. Or if it's up above you, it's going to look different than it would be on flat ground. To try to get somewhere where you can practice and know those ranges and what it looks like at up and down and flat ground, I think would be a huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you've tested your stuff. You know what things are shoot. You know, you've tested your broadheads. You know, the move isn't to screw your broadhead on the day you go out to hunt, right? It's not going to shoot the same. Your field point and your fixed blade broadhead aren't going to shoot the same. Now, if you're shooting an expandable, got it. You know, that will shoot the same, and that's totally fine. I shoot a fixed blade, but I'm not anti expandables. They work, right? And they're a good tool for a lot of people. But the same point remains of testing everything that you can test at home, so that when you're there, you're not spending time testing equipment. You're spending time, you know, trying to kill an elk.
Yeah. Would you suggest an elk setup for your arrows separately from your whitetail, or do you prefer to get that sweet spot where you can use an arrow setup on both?
I use the same on both. So I'm like 490 grains about, but wow. I'm short, right? I'm 5'8". My draw length's 26 and a half. You know, I don't have a very long arrow, but I shoot a Easton FMJ. It's like 13.1 grains per inch.
Damn.
And I shoot the same thing for elk. Yeah, it's great. I mean, my bow's like 74 pounds. You know, I shoot a 100-grain broadhead, no like weighted insert or anything like that. I'm not a big front of center guy. You know, and I've never had issues with recovery, penetration, anything like that. I mean, I've done frontal shots, shot elk at 75 yards. I've shot elk at 10 yards, and they all work the same in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah.
And as far as deer goes, I've never had the chance or need to adjust it for deer. I know some guys like a faster arrow maybe for deer, so they don't duck it, or there's a handful of advantages to a faster arrow, but I like to keep it as simple as I possibly can and not mess with it between, because I will go like from one hunt to the next, right? I came home from our So I'm in 2D where I live,
Oh, okay.
and when I archery hunt here, or excuse me, 2B. But when the season opens like 2 weeks early, so I'll come right from
Yeah.
Wyoming and just hop up in a tree stand as soon as I get home, and I don't have to fart around with a different arrow or adjusting my pins or anything like that.
Makes total sense. And it goes to show again that you can go against what the quote unquote experts say, and also eases the minds of Eastern hunters because you're taking your whitetail setup out west and having success with it. So that eases the mind that you don't need to go out and waste the money on a whole new arrow setup and put all this money into building it up heavy and FOC and high FOC and everything like that. So it's another good tip that when you're starting off, you really don't need to do that stuff.
And the biggest thing, I listen to a lot of material about arrow setup, and I picked one and I run it for both of them, and it's a heavier setup. I don't know that you can run the light 300 grain total arrow weight on an elk because it's maintaining kinetic energy, and depending on what bow shop you go to, they may put you into the lightest, fastest option you can get. And is it ideal for elk? Absolutely not. Can you kill an elk with it? You sure can. It's shot placement, and then if you've got the light setup, don't take a 60-yard shot. Get within 30 yards and don't shoot it in the shoulder. Shoot it behind the shoulder, and you're going to get a pass through, even if you've got a slightly lighter setup. And so it's knowing what you got and adjusting accordingly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, if you can make it work on your setup that you have an heavier arrow, obviously it's a better advantage. But what we're saying is you don't need to go guru crazy. You don't need to do that. What the biggest part is knowing your equipment, knowing what your kinetic energy is, knowing how fast your arrow is, knowing everything of where your penetration is going to be, because the reality is you're shooting a much larger creature.
Yeah.
And if you have a quartering shot that you may not know is quartering, you may need those extra 3 or 4 inches of penetration on your arrow to get that second long, right? And not make it go 100 miles and die on somebody else's property or something like that. So I mean, it's a big deal. I've gotten into it this year a little bit more seriously with my own setup, but it's definitely is a huge deal to know your setup.
I think, the one thing that whitetail guy may not think about too. So 2 points to this maybe that would be valuable to your listeners. Think about calling in an elk. It's coming right at you, right? If you're solo calling in, you don't have a calling sequence. It has to come through you, right? So there's a lot of ways that thinking about that, and a whole nother conversation about like the doorway principle and calling an elk and actually doing your setup. That it's something, if you're going to go out west for archery elk hunting, spend a whole nother episode talking about where and how you form a setup, because it's make or break on the elk in terms of where you call and where the elk's going to stop where it thinks it's going to see you. But getting back to the subject, it's going to be a frontal, right? You're going to have a frontal shot, which is not something that's common for deer. Out of it, all the deer I've shot, I don't know that I've ever shot a frontal deer with a bow, right, from a tree stand. It just is an odd angle. But it's very common for elk, and you need that penetration. So thinking about the anatomy of them and practicing that frontal is definitely valuable. And then the other piece that would probably be valuable too is the actual sight. Because things happen so fast, you don't always have the ability to adjust. So like a lot of guys like that single pin slider where they can move it and whatever else. Well, if something goes from elk are big, 800-pound bull that's tall and has long legs. It takes 3 steps and now it's changed 15 yards or 10 yards. You don't want to have to then put your bow down, change your slider, and pull it back up. You need to be able to go from top pin to bottom to second pin down and know that that's 10 yards. And it's a simple thing, but I shoot a 5-pin slider, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then I'll slide down to 70 and down to 80, and the rest is pin gaps. But that's a huge advantage for Western bow hunting. And I use the same, I don't have a budget to have like 4 sights. I use the same sight for whitetail as I use for elk, and I've never had a problem with like identifying or the people complain about the pin, all the pins confusing them in the setup and whatever else. I mean, maybe you don't shoot your bow enough or whatever else.
100%
But
if they're saying that shit.
Yeah.
right,
Again, goes back to knowing your equipment and being comfortable with your equipment.
right, exactly. But those are valuable, to think about. It's been I've learned that the hard way, and I'd say those are like consensus type of points.
Yeah. I mean, whether you're using a single pin slider or you're using a 5-pin, you need to know, like, even if you have that single pin slider and you're setting it at 30 yards, you need to be able to shoot that out to 50, 60 yards and know where to hold your holdover. I mean, I think if you can do that and you can shoot it at 37 yards, you can shoot it at 46 yards, and you can do it accurately with one pin, then yeah, you can get away with that single pin. But again, like you said, you haven't even had time to range find a deer, an elk 5 out of the 7 times or whatever. If you're trying to slide your pin and you might only have a very small gap to shoot and take that animal, you got to know where to hold. I mean, you have to know where to hold over on an elk compared to a deer, because if you're saying at 37 yards I'm holding the back of a deer, well, that elk body's obviously much larger, so you just need to go back to taking the time and putting the time in to know your equipment. That stuff's free. That doesn't take money to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%.
You're absolutely right. An elk's 28 inches. You've got a lot. Yeah, you don't. It might be one thing where you miss a deer. I don't want to say it's hard to miss an elk, but you've got a lot of body to hit.
Yeah. Which may increase your odds of killing the animal, but also increases your odds of wounding the animal, and not recovering it. So there's a lot more body there if you make a bad shot to
hurt it. Yeah.
To hurt it, right? So, well, we got super tactical on both of these episodes.
Yeah, I know. These are very informative.
Hot and heavy. I love it.
What are we at? An hour and 12?
We're just about an hour and 12. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you want him to tell any of his stories? Have we heard a story yet?
Do you want a story, or do you want to hit last call here?
Oh, I don't know. What do you do with the story? What type of story?
I mean, if you want to talk about, 2 Fridays ago, $80 at the strip club, and then, face down at a ditch somewhere, you can tell us that. Or, if you want to tell us about an elk, you tell us.
I prefer elk story, if that's okay.
Hey, we told John Collins, he asked what kind of picture. I said skin and death. And he said, okay, babe. So,
you got to take your shirt off before you pose for your next elk picture.
I prefer deer picture.
I am the wrong person to say that to. I can assure you of that. Jeff, you got any questions?
Before you do that.
Oh, no, the girls like that. And by girls, I mean Chucky.
Oh, yeah.
Chucky, you got any questions for John?
No, man. I think we hit it pretty good. I mean, without getting like super into the details, I feel like anybody from our area that's typically going to listen to this, and even if you're not from our area, there's a lot to be gained from the information that we're sharing. And for me personally, it got rid of a lot of that fear that I've once said. I don't know if I'll ever elk hunt, because there's a lot of that doubt and just a lot of commitment to it that I didn't know if I wanted to do or not.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not just for dudes from Pennsylvania. I mean, if you're from Ohio, Kentucky, anywhere, and you're thinking about going out, wherever. I mean, this is all, the same. It's the same for everybody to get out there. But, I mean, we definitely wanted to demystify things and, make it a little more overwhelming. Overwhelming was the word that I seem to use whenever we're talking about this. Because it can be. If you're going into it like how you did, I give you a lot of credit to go in, completely on your own, completely cold, no knowledge, and just send it. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot to figure out.
Yeah. Well, we teased it, but I do want to hear at least one of your elk stories from this year. If you want to pick one of them and just give a real quick recap of the hunt and kind of break down the moment.
He's not letting you leave empty-handed.
I'm not.
I can give you a story. That won't be a problem. The one thing I will say too is, as far as demystifying it, everything was hard when you first started it, right?
Yeah.
And you figure it out. It's just more about trying it, and you'll learn. And it's not that difficult, but it is it's a little more rewarding doing it on your own than calling a guide and having them do everything for you. You feel a better sense of accomplishment, but
it's a lot
at the end of the day,
too.
yeah, well, It's a lot less expensive, but it's also, it's a new experience and it's a cool experience. It's a different way to, hunting in PA. You can't really get kicking into whitetail season until October. This is a great way to spend the month of September,
Yeah.
Archery elk hunting and expand your hunting season. So
For sure.
Absolutely.
this year hunting story or previous year hunting story, or does it
Whatever's
matter?
sticking out in your mind right now. I just go for it. I want to hear it.
I guess I had a pretty cool story this year, and had a couple. Actually, I'll tell a 2017 one. Maybe it's more, just it was an interesting experience. But it was my wife and I, and we were archery elk hunting in Colorado over the counter. I'm a first week of the season guy. I like when they're a little bit patternable, and I more than anything, I can't wait any longer. By the time they were opening their season the last Saturday of August. All right, we were there. I mean, I was there like August 20th, ready to go. We do the deal, hunt for however many days, running across guys and guys and guys, and finally got on a bull. And I put an arrow in a bull, and it was a bad shot. It was one of those things. It was 40 yards steep uphill. My bow was canted more than I thought, and it just a shot I've made 100 times, 1,000 times at home, goes back, right? Falls back, more liver side than shoulder side. And, immediately, terrible feeling. But what we did, we went back to the truck, which was a 2-mile walk back to the truck, sat down, ate lunch, I changed into shorts. It was almost 90 degrees. Like, it was hot as shit. It was the end of August. So we go back up there and we start roping this thing off, taping it, following the blood trail, finding little blood, big blood, and then it's just continually getting smaller and smaller until we're hands and knees, and we hit an avalanche chute. So out west, there will be these areas where the snow all packs up and rushes down the mountain whenever the spring thaw occurs and generally wipes all the trees off of it. South-facing slopes, there's a lot of vegetation, like grasses on there. But no, and it's just dirty. I could see that the elk made it to there and then nothing beyond there. And at this point, we'd tracked the damn thing for like 3 hours, and I shot it at 8. We gave it 3 hours to sit. So we're back up on the mountain at 11. Now it's probably 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I'm thinking, all right, are we ever going to find this? We weren't about to give up on it, but, hands and knees for 3 hours in this little area, I didn't know what else to do. So we totally lost blood. I take one step on the other side of the avalanche chute, and I hear like something rolling down the mountain. Big, like somebody pushed a cow right off the top, and it's just breaking branches. And this is about as steep as you can imagine. It's not something you can you're not standing on even footing. Let's call it that. Well, it turns out it's the bull. It had lost so much blood that it tried to stand up and basically lost total energy and lost all the blood pressure that it had, rolled all the way down, halfway down the damn hill. And if I hadn't stepped into there, I never would have found it because we had totally lost blood. It was one of those just dumb luck things. I was able to get over to it, and it was the first archery elk I'd ever shot. And it was one of those go from feeling like as low as you can be to feeling way better about it. I was so paranoid about like spoiling meat. I took one pic. There's one picture of me with it that my wife snapped while I've got my gun gloves on, and I've already got it half open. And it was a really nice elk. I wish I'd taken like more pictures with it, but I was so concerned because it was so hot and it was getting dark, and I didn't want to spoil the meat. But it was a kind of a cool. It wasn't cool. It's definitely not the way you would want to harvest something, but it was worth sticking through it and trying to find something and whatnot. But that's one of the elk stories that has some flavor to it, as opposed to the grind it out for 7 days, shoot it, and it dies right there.
Yeah.
Those are really fun, but not the best stories.
Oh, for sure. No, that's awesome. It's even cooler that your wife, to keep repeating that, comes and does that stuff with you. That's awesome. And that's cool
Now that
too.
we've
You're all
got
about the
kids,
meat
it doesn't
too.
happen, but
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Well, that's good. Once he gets old enough, man, hey, we're taking the kid. They love that when you take the kid.
Well, as long as he's quiet.
Oh, for sure.
Good
for
luck
sure.
with that.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try it as soon as possible. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't. I'm sure my success rate will go down, but I guess that's part of the deal.
Hey, puppies are trainable. You just got to get them early enough,
For
right?
sure.
That's a good point.
Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on, John. I had a really good time recording this. I think Booer and Jeff here, I think they would agree that this was a blast, and we really appreciate you taking time out on your weekend, man, and spending it here with us.
Oh, we're definitely going to be checking back in with you here for sure.
Oh, yeah. You're not getting off the limb that easily. You know, we'll be back with you, and we'll get another episode.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate it. If there's any way, to help some of the listeners anymore, happy to do so. I think it's anything about getting people into hunting out west and hunting, period, is positive. So,
Absolutely. Where
Good
can
stuff.
everybody find you on the socials?
I think my Instagram's just John Wappler. I don't have Facebook or anything actually beyond that. John, just JOHNWAPPLER.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll be tagging the crap out of you and all this. So.
Yep.
Everybody else, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Don't leave too much negative comments unless it's about me. I love that stuff. But otherwise, stay the course, and we'll see you next time.